crowd gathered around her little white casket, wrote little notes on her casket, sorry, this because it did ping and it went off and you got caught.
No. He's obviously the person who behind the cover up.
Yes. Dismembered, decapitated. Probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
Show cans of soup were found with holes in the lids.
Crowd gathered around her because it did ping and it went off and you got caught.
Behind the cover up.
Dismembered, decapitated. Probably because you're trying to hide something and make sure certain details don't come out.
Tend to Life with Elise starts right now. This is Tend to Life with Elise.
Hello, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me. I haven't gone live in 7 months, and you already know I'm like a little tech challenged. So just let me know if you can hear me. I felt like it would be really cool to play those trailers before we started, because if you saw my community post earlier, you know we have officially hit 1 million. Wow. My sister's here with me. I didn't think I was going to get emotional. Maybe I'm PMSing. But anyways, I thought that it'd be really cool to play like all of the trailers from when we started back in 2020 for so many of you who I know have been with me and since the very beginning. So wanted to play those kind of as like a little throwback, just to remind everybody, you know, where we started, where we are now. Instead of sitting on my normal pink couch and doing my stuff there, I felt like I want to just kind of like show you a little bit of behind the scenes, kind of just come on here candidly with you guys, hang out. And my sister Amy is in the background. You might recognize her. She's done a few lives with me in the past. Maybe she'll have a reoccurring spot and come back on, but she's here with me today and she's helping mod. She's helping keep me on track and keep me sane. The backdrop for Serialously is behind me. You can see it's like kind of a disaster zone here, but this is where I am every day. So a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. So today I put it in the pinned comment, which let me actually unpin that now really quick. But I have a few cases that I want to go over with you guys because I know you guys have been asking for them and you want updates in them, things like that. But I also really just want to make this your live, if that makes sense and doesn't sound super cheesy. But I feel like we haven't been live together in such a long time. So I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. I want to talk about the cases you want to talk about. So I'm going to answer a lot of questions in the chat, a lot of case questions, any questions about the channel you might have, anything like that. I really just want to kind of do what you guys want and give you the content that you want today. And we can just kind of, I don't want to say have fun with it, because obviously there's nothing fun about true crime, but I don't really have a structure in place. I'm kind of just going to wing it and roll with it as we go. But again, I do have the specifics that I definitely do want to talk with you guys about. I'm going to do my best to get to the super chats as quickly as I can. I slowed the chat. I tried to make it subscribers only as well, just so that we can mitigate any trolls that want to sneak in, but hopefully I can lift that shortly, because usually you guys are all pretty good. Heather, thank you so much for the congratulations and the super chat. I appreciate it. I see some new members are coming in. Consistent Insomniac, thank you so much for being here. Cindy Humalu, I think I said that one right. Thank you so much for being a member. Sorry, you guys know I'm not good at pronunciation on a lot of things. Mandy, let's see. I remember the times that you were live often and people could call in and talk in on your lives with you. Yes. So it's funny because the other day when I was thinking like, hey, I should set up a live. Like I haven't been live in so long. The last time that I was live was actually when the Idaho affidavit was released, and we were going over everything that was released and all of the details and against Bryan Kohberger and all of those things. And I was looking this morning, that was 7 months ago. I used to go live, I feel like once a week. So my goal is definitely, I don't know if I can get back to once a week. I'm going to try, but to go live more frequently, because I really do miss that. I miss being able to just jump on, talk with you guys, share the updates, and go through things. So that's definitely going to be a push of mine, because I really miss it. Sierra Jones, thank you for being a member for 9 months. Wow. Congratulations, Annie. Thank you for your unwavering dedication to all these cases and all you do for the community. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's take a quick second here. I want to talk about, where are we going to start? Let me think. Let me go over to what I started pulling together picture-wise that I want to share with you. And then you guys can kind of let me know where we start. The ones that are on my docket for today, and let me know other ones, of course, that you want to talk about. But I want to talk about the Amy Harwick case and what's been going on there, because obviously we know that the trial's happening. She was the sex therapist that was murdered by her ex-boyfriend stalker. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I also want to talk about some updates in Alexee Trevizo, the girl, the monster, I should say, who threw away her newborn in the hospital trash can, and her crazy mom as well. We're going to talk about that. We, of course, are going to talk a little bit about Ruby Frankie, 8 passengers, the allegations of abuse there, the recent arrest, some of the details there, which I am doing a deep dive on that. I'm actually going to be recording it later today, so that will be up very soon, not only on the podcast, but over here on 10 to Life. We can talk about Mackenzie Shirilla too, if you guys want. That video is going to be coming out, I believe, tomorrow. The podcast episode just came out yesterday. So if you want to listen to that, she's the one who is being dubbed Hell on Wheels and was going 100 miles an hour in her car and killed her boyfriend and his friend, and is just awful as well and not remorseful. And if you saw my reel on Instagram yesterday with one of her TikToks from before, seems like an entitled little monster. We're also going to talk about BTK, because there are obviously tons of updates coming out of there, which kind of surprised a lot of people because it was quiet for a while. But at the same time, I feel like there has been this kind of new sense of interest in him, especially ever since the Bryan Kohberger stuff. So we're going to talk about all of it, and let me know too, again, in the comments, what you guys would like to talk about as well. Let me pop over here really quick. Oh, okay. Steph, I just got your super chat. So first of all, thank you. Talk about the escaped prisoner in Chester County, Pennsylvania. I was actually just getting caught up with this last night. I saw a couple people go live with it on YouTube and the surveillance footage. This guy looks like he scares the crap out of me, quite honestly. But yes, from what I know, and you guys I'm sure know a lot more about this case than I do, he was an escaped prisoner. Last I heard, he broke in, I don't know if it was his mother's house or somebody else's house, and just stole fruit and then continued going on the run. So I definitely need to look into that one a little bit more, but that is a scary one. Eggplant, thank you guys so much for the super chat and the kind words. I really appreciate it. And guys, please, like I said, I really am going to try and acknowledge all the super chats. Please don't feel like you need to send super chats. I appreciate it greatly, and I really do, but please do not feel like you need to do that. Annie, would love to know your thoughts on the lawsuits from Kylie Rodney's dad, grandpa, and Ikadmel. Okay, we'll talk about that. I've got some thoughts. We will definitely talk about that. I will add it to the list, and let's kind of start with Amy Harwick. So let me go over here, and I'm going to pull up some photos with you. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this case, I'm going to kind of go over the highlights with you. But Amy was a Hollywood sex therapist, and she was murdered in February of 2020. Interestingly, she was murdered a little less than a month after her run-in with her ex-boyfriend, who was her stalker. Now, here's what's interesting. So right now, the trial is going on with the suspected killer, who happens to be Amy's ex-boyfriend. They dated way back in 2010. And this murder happened a decade later in 2020. His name is Gareth Pursehouse, and let me pull up a photo with him in it as well. He's a software engineer and a photographer, and basically she had a restraining order on him, and he was getting physically harmful. There was some domestic disputes happening during their relationship. He was very controlling. He at one point had also sent her a text message with a threat saying things will get worse. So Amy had filed 2 restraining orders, one in 2011 and one in 2012. Well, the 2011 one was dismissed, and the 2012 one was granted for 5 years, but she didn't renew it after 5 years. Some people believe that it's because maybe she was too scared to face him in the courtroom, maybe because nothing serious had really happened since all of those years had passed. Really unsure what the reason was for not renewing it. However, then, and I'll come back to some pictures, but then on January 17th of 2020, there was an event and he was a photographer there. And I believe that she was speaking on a panel very last minute. It was unplanned. So they hadn't seen each other in years. But again, he was a photographer there. I'm guessing that seeing her again just kind of sparked everything to his outrage again, because it was reported that he became extremely agitated when he saw her, that he was yelling at her. She actually went to talk with him to calm the situation down, and then she did so again during the ceremony. So, and after that, she was so rattled by this that she got mace, she got pepper spray, and she even had a handyman come to her home and add in a ton of extra locks for safety. But less than a month after that event, on February 15th, he was seen on surveillance footage going into her house 4 hours prior to the murder, which also, was it 4 hours? Yeah, 4 hours, 4 days. It was on Valentine's Day while she was out with friends. And then she came home and he allegedly strangled her, injected her with nicotine, which apparently if you have pure nicotine, it can be lethal. And then she was tossed off the 3rd-story balcony and he fled the home. So the defense is arguing that he went there with no intentions of killing her, that he just went there to talk with her. The defense also introduced a photo during the trial of Amy posing on her balcony saying, you know, she's very comfortable with the outdoors. She was out there. She could have fell accidentally. It wasn't him, trying to, of course, bring in reasonable doubt, which we know is the defense's job. But it's a really sad situation. She at one point was engaged to Drew Carey, the Price is Right guy, the comedian guy. I don't know what else Drew Carey does. That's not to shame him. I just really don't know. And so it's interesting because, again, they dated in 2010. This happened 10 years later. The restraining order had expired years prior. She didn't renew it. And then it's like, it just kind of, I guess, goes to show if you're ever in a situation like that, where there are domestic disputes, where there's any sort of control or just any sort of danger or violence, that even if it goes dormant for a while, it can definitely reoccur, because you never know, by this person seeing you again or hearing about you, hearing your name, hearing you moved on, it can set them off again, like it clearly did, allegedly, in this case. And then he went and he actually killed her. It's just very, very, very sad. So, he is this comedian in stand-up. And wasn't he on Whose Line Is It Anyway, or something like that? I don't know. So okay. It was Whose Line Is Anyway. See, I know. Okay. So, obviously very scary, but this is, again, too, I feel like so many of the times when we go through cases, we talk about how they are supposed to serve as reminders for certain things. So I think this just illustrates, again, if you're ever in a situation like that and you ever unfortunately have a stalker or anybody like that who's threatening you, or you're in a relationship where things are getting violent or controlling, or you're starting to see some of those characteristics, not only get out, and I know that's easier said than done, but don't think that after things go quiet for a little while that it's done and it's better. Continue the paperwork, even though we know sometimes restraining orders are, just a paper, but continue that, because you never know. And it just really is scary, because so many of these stalkers too have this fixation and this delusion that you're actually in a relationship with them, that things are different than what the reality is. And it's just a very scary place to be. So yes, sorry for those of you who are just jumping in. This is my sister in the back. They're like, who is that? This is my sister, Amy. She used to go on live streams with me from time to time. She is actually one of the people who got me very into true crime back when I was probably like 11 years old. So she's done some lives with me too. We talk about cases offline all the time. So she'll probably jump back on in one of the days to come soon. But yeah, that was our thing when we lived together forever. After growing up, we lived together again, and we would order froyo. We would watch Dateline. We have an obsession with Keith Morrison. I got Amy a signed 8x10 of Keith Morrison for Christmas one year. So she belongs here. She's one of us. Biggest cheerleader. All right. So, see, some of you guys have caught the lives with Amy. That's awesome. So let me think. What else? I can jump kind of right into the other stuff. I mean, I was going to talk about Alexee Trevizo and some of the updates going on there. So as a reminder, Alexee is the monster who went to the hospital with back pain. She then delivered her baby in the bathroom, threw the baby in the trash can. Her mom had some weird behavior in all of this too when it came time for the arrest. But in the meantime, Alexee went to prom like nothing happened. They have some shrines at the house to the baby. And now what has really irritated me in the newest update is that the judge is actually allowing her to go to college in the fall, which I don't know. Like it blows my mind. She's like the worst of the worst of the worst. So basically, at the hearing last week, the judge ruled that Alexee may attend college in person at New Mexico State University. Now, obviously, this has a lot of people pissed off. So there was a petition with more than 20,000 signatures to get her banned from the campus. And it's called Get Alexee Trevizo Off NMSU Campus. And her attorney, of course, is very upset by this, slamming the petition, saying it's not right. And his quote, I'm going to read this because it's actually a direct quote, is, "She decided not to create a controversy, so she's trying to take her classes remotely this first semester. Let's not start comparing who's a better human being." No contest. Alexee has a better heart and moral convictions than petition backers. She just wants this to be over. She just wants to get the facts out. Now, personally, I'm very curious to know what those facts are, because the last thing that we saw in this prior to this new motion this new ruling from the judge was that she was trying to blame the baby's death, her son's death, her newborn son's death, on the hospital, saying that they were the ones responsible for it, not her, who put the baby in a plastic bag inside the trash can and then scampered off as though nothing ever happened, like she wouldn't get caught. So I'm really interested to hear what the truth is. Also claiming she didn't know she was pregnant. Most of us by now have seen the cheerleading photos, things like that, where you clearly were pregnant. And I'm sure everybody around you knew. Some friends had come forward saying she did talk about the pregnancy. She named the baby after her boyfriend. I mean, a lot of coincidences, in my opinion, innocent until proven guilty, I suppose. But in my opinion, a lot of coincidences for someone who didn't know they were pregnant, who was truly terrified, and now the hospital is responsible for the baby's death. I do think that there is a component possibly at play of her mother being very controlling, very strict, to where maybe Alexee felt she had no other option, because her mom does come across as a little bit of a steamroller, to me at least. I'm curious to know what you guys think. So I think that and I know that they're very religious, so I think that there could be some of that at play, to where maybe she was excited about the baby or unexcited, who knows, but couldn't tell her mom because her mom was so strict, and that's how this all ended. But for her mom to not know that she was pregnant, given that she was clearly showing, I don't know. There's a lot of things for me that just really do not add up. And I agree with you. If it really truly was the hospital's fault, she wouldn't have done what she had done. She wouldn't have hid it for so long. She would have been distraught by everything. She wouldn't have gone to prom and acted like nothing happened. It's just very, very odd. Oh, I do want to talk about this really quick. Gray, thoughts on Alex Murdaugh getting a new murder trial? I think that's really interesting. I just saw rumblings of that this weekend, so I haven't been able to dive into all of the details of that. I can't imagine that he would get a new murder trial. If it has been granted, please correct me. But I would be very, very surprised by that. But no surprise that his son, in his new interview last week, is still standing by him completely and saying he doesn't think that his father could be capable of doing that. But again, once more, not only has he been convicted, but it's like you start to look at all of the coincidences of the clothing, of his cell data, the digital footprint from the time of the murders. So it's like, at what point, and I get being in denial if you're a child, but like, at what point do you kind of just say, the writing's on the wall? Most likely he probably did this. So it'll be interesting. Oh, his attorney is saying they have new evidence, so he deserves a new trial. Would love to hear that evidence. And as a reminder, we did talk a little bit about the Sun's interview on Thursday on Headline Highlights. That's the new episode I'm putting out on the podcast on Serialously. Every Thursday morning, a new episode comes out, and it's about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It's like a bite-sized thing, but where we go over everything that has happened, updates in current cases, brand new cases that have just broken. It's basically what the title says, Headline Highlights. So if you want to listen to those, it's over on the podcast, and it's every Thursday. You know what? This feels like it's a perfect time to go into this one. Carlberg Ice would love to hear your thoughts on 8 passengers, Ruby Frankie. All right. I've got a lot of thoughts here. First of all, I never followed 8 passengers, or I honestly, I don't really follow many family vloggers. I've seen bits and pieces here and there based on Josh from Dad Challenge podcast and his coverage of certain things. And I know that 8 passengers was one he covered a lot. So I was never very familiar with the content, but when I knew the name. And once I heard about the arrests and the details of the arrest and the partner who she was arrested with, it kind of started to make sense to me. And I'll go into all the details in a second, and I just want to start with this because I'm interested to hear your thoughts. It feels almost as though the line of therapy that she was, like the path she was going down with this therapist, with Jody, and like what she felt was like the way they needed to manage behaviors and stuff, and with connections and all that, it felt very cult-like in a sense. And not cult like you have a big group of believers, but very culty. And I was talking with one of the girls on the team about this the other day, and it reminded me a lot. And I can't think of the woman. You might know this, Amy, because I think you watched the documentary too. It was either on Hulu or on Amazon. And it was the church woman who had the really big hair. She was really thin, and like they would like they like basically pushed and believed in their churchgoers. I believe it was their churchgoers, like bringing the children into rooms for like the entire weekend, locking them in a room, like whipping them into submission until they then are like so properly behaved. Kind of feels a little Duggar-ish too, honestly, if you ask me. But Gwen Shamblin, yes. So when I first started hearing about this case, that's kind of where my mind immediately went to. I was like, it feels very much like that, to where it's like, it's culty. And in your mind, I would have to imagine they believe that what they're doing is right. And that, nobody else understands. We are just like so far ahead of everybody else, and they're going to catch up eventually. I would have to imagine that that's what they tell themselves and believe, because otherwise you would have to be an actual complete monster who gets off on torture. But let's go into some of this. So it does also, yes, the Turpin family case, very, very, very many similarities in it, unfortunately, with the duct tape, the malnourishment, a lot of similarities. And we've done a lot of coverage on the Turpin case over here. I know many of you guys have been a part of that. It's horrific. So let me put up a picture here of Frankie, and we're going to kind of just go through this together a little bit. And again, a deep dive of this is coming either in the next day or two. It'll be on the podcast in the next day or two, and it'll be on YouTube shortly after that. It's just easier for me to get the audio version out before the video version with all of the edits. So Ruby and Kevin are the parents of 6 kids who are ranging from 10 to 20 years old. They have 2 young adults, and then they have 4 minors. They started their family vlogging channel back in 2015, and I believe that they hit 1 million subscribers in just 2 years. So very, very quickly got popular. However, they did start receiving a lot of backlash because they had certain practices in place of punishment and of things that they would do with their kids to kind of give them some sort of guardrails and things. So, for example, like some of the discipline methods that they would do is one of the common ones seemed to be tactics with food, threatening to take food away. I believe there was a 4-year-old one time who left their food at home on the way to preschool, which, hello, many 4-year-olds would forget their lunch pail at home. And don't quote me on this, but from what I had seen, to my knowledge, the 4-year-old left the food at home. So then when she dropped the 4-year-old off at school, she told the teacher she needs to learn her lesson, or they need to learn their lesson. They forgot their lunch. Don't give them any food today at school. Like, just horrible things like that as a parent, you're like, how can you even do that as like a human being? They're 4 years old. Like, it's really, really sick. She also apparently had threatened to cut off one of the daughter's favorite stuffed animals' heads as a form of retaliation. She sent Chad to a wilderness camp and then took his bedroom away and made him sleep on a beanbag in the house with no bedroom for months. And just some like very controlling and, quite honestly, abusive behavior, even if hands aren't physically on them at this point yet. So she hired this Jody person who was like the partner, the connections person, and hired her as Chad's therapist, apparently, and then also Kevin and Ruby's. So Jody and Ruby became extremely close, like overly close and very toxic. And then there is speculation that Kevin, the husband, was kicked out of the house as like maybe because he wasn't aligning with their views, maybe because their partnership was just like she was becoming entranced with that. And I don't mean partnership like relationship wise, but who knows? We've seen crazier things happen. So they have this thing there's this thing connections where it's like about the discipline and about behavior and how to like strengthen things. Anyways, I don't know the specifics as to why the channel got pulled off on YouTube. Somebody please let me know in the comments. But to my knowledge, their whole 8 passengers thing ended up getting yanked, or maybe she was getting so much backlash, she yanked it. But people were witnessing all of this happen and calling it out and saying, because she was, first of all, and I could go off on a whole long tangent about that, a whole different live stream about family vlogging. It's one thing to share bits and pieces of your family's life. I do it, people not on YouTube, but I do it like on Instagram and things like that. Family vlogging is something that I find very uncomfortable, and I'm happy that there are finally laws being put in place, because I do think you are exploiting your child without their consent and you're making a paycheck off their back, and they have to then live with all these embarrassing moments. Like this woman would document, I believe, like when the kids would start their periods, when they would bra shop, things that have no business being on the internet, right? And so, but what's so alarming to me is that even with these practices in place and how she felt she would withhold food, she would take the bedroom away from one child, she was so public with this. Like, she didn't see anything wrong in this. And that's what makes me believe that it was this kind of cult-like mentality of where she truly thought what she was doing was right. Because why else would you, first of all, you would say, why else would you ever do it? But also, why else would you ever broadcast that publicly? So, oh, okay. So hold on. YouTube, I guess. So it was YouTube that wiped it. They made a statement that they wiped out both 8 passengers and the connections upon the criminal charges. But their channel went away long before that, I believe. Yes, it is only one state so far that the laws have been put in place for that. But there's a lot more conversation happening around that. A lot of people are recognizing that it is a problem. So hopefully there does start to become some traction there. So with that, let me go back over here and we'll kind of talk a little bit about the arrest. So this is Ruby and Jody. I mean, if that doesn't scream, and I'm probably going to offend some people in here, but if that doesn't scream like Scientologist PSA or like cult PSA with the headsets, I don't know what does. It just really irks me. But again, that's just me being petty, and sorry to any Scientologists in the chat. So this is the family home, and Jody and Ruby were both arrested on August 30th after the 12-year-old son Russell had escaped through a window in Jody's home and then ran to a neighbor's house asking for food and water. Now, when this happened, neighbors noticed that Russell had duct tape on his hands and on his ankles, so they obviously called the police. He was sent straight to the hospital with severe malnourishment and lacerations from the duct tape and from ropes. So, like somebody had mentioned in the chat, very similar to the Turpin case. Although, in addition to that, the Turpins had actual chains on their beds as well. 10-year-old Eve was also found in Jody's home, and it took them 4 hours apparently to convince her to get medical help. Which, how sad is that when you think about it? That this 10-year-old who is being held and abused and just tormented, it takes 4 hours for professionals to convince her to seek medical treatment because in her mind, I'm assuming, I don't know for a fact, but based on so many cases like this we've covered, in her mind, she is probably brainwashed to where she thinks she deserved this treatment. She probably loves her mom and loves Jody and doesn't want anything bad to happen to them. She thinks it's right. She's probably so scared of what the backlash will be if she does go and ask for help. It's just it's really, really unsettling. So some details have been released. It looks like a lot of the information is still starting to emerge too, because so many minors are involved, of course. But they were initially charged with 2 counts of child counts, and they now have 6 each. So they are being held on no bond. Great. But 4 of the minors are in the care of DCFS. Now, again, I'm not very familiar with the Frankie family, with 8 passengers, with the dynamic with Kevin and why the husband wasn't involved anymore or little involvement. So I don't know why the children are automatically in the care of the system rather than with family, but I would imagine for a good reason. So if you guys have the answers to that, yeah, that was Jody's house. I'm sorry, that was not the family's house. That was Jody's house. So if you guys have the answers to that as to why they're not with Kevin, please let me know, because to my knowledge, and again, I could be wrong, he had been, I don't want to say estranged, but not complicit in any of this and didn't agree or align with a lot of the techniques and the treatment that was happening at that point too. And I know it's easier said than done. Why wasn't there? Why didn't you intervene? There's a million questions I think that so many of us still have. So I know that Josh from Dad Challenge podcast, again, I told you how he had covered so many family bloggers. I know he's been covering a lot of this 8 passenger stuff. So if you want to get a full deep dive, I would highly suggest going over and watching his videos. He always has, different takes on different people, but I know he's been covering this one a lot. So I'm actually going to try to chat with him to get his take on it as well. But, okay, I haven't seen where that has been confirmed at all. So unless I'm missing that, but let's just go easy on that. Let me see. Let me go over here. Jenna Dragon is saying that outwardly over religious folks are always coming out with this type of behavior. Behind closed doors, you never know. I agree. And it's sad too, because it does seem like there always is a religious aspect attached to it, whether it's the Duggar family, whether it's that Shamlin girl, Scientology, whatever it is. The Turpins, there wasn't really any sort of religion. I don't believe there was any sort of religion. It was just, I don't think the 2 parents were quite mentally there, to be quite honest, with the Turpin family. And they were doing weird things. That whole case was just bizarre and grotesque. And oh, it was. Okay, I apologize. I must have missed that. I didn't know that was in the main news article. Okay, let's see. Acid Rain, I think they're divorcing, and I think they kept the kids from him because past abuse based on the neighbor reports. It's interesting, and I'm just going to touch on this for a second. I swear, I'm not trying to refer to Josh from Dad Challenge podcast all the time, but it's no secret that there are mixed feelings on Josh's coverage, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. Some people don't like the snark. Some people appreciate it because they think that he's trying to raise awareness for the bigger issue of family vlogging and the exploitation that happens with that. But what I will say is, and I was telling this to one of the girls on my team last night as well, I have seen a lot more postings out there of people saying kind of like, Josh has been calling this out for years. Like he's been trying to bring attention to this, and maybe he's gone about it in a way that people don't agree with. I don't know. Personally, Josh is a friend of mine. I don't watch all of his coverage on things, so I can't speak on that. But what I will say is he is very well versed in this family vlogging multiverse or whatever you would call it. And so he definitely probably has, tons of knowledge over there. So I would highly suggest watching those videos. All right, so let me go back over here while you guys comment and let me know what other cases you want to talk about. Let's talk about Bryan Kohberger for a second. There aren't really a ton of updates in here, and if you listened to my podcast episode Headline Highlights last week, you kind of know where we were at with like the cameras and the cameras being banned. But apparently that there has been a motion now filed from Ann Taylor, not only wanting to ban the cameras, but a detail that Bryan wants to ban the cameras because he's claimed that they are focusing on his crotch. Okay, my guy. Let's just come back to reality for a moment here, because while I do think that the cameras have been mishandled a bit, and I will say that they're supposed to pan to the whole like room, all of these things, and they focus tightly in on Bryan, and when that happens, everybody's gonna read the body language their own way, the facial expressions their own way. So I don't agree with the handling of that, and I feel like it should have been handled differently. But do I think they're focusing in on his crotch? Like, bro, let's humble ourselves for a minute here. So anyways, she had filed the motion asking the judge to expel cameras, arguing that in previous court appearances, the cameras had focused on him and it was in an attempt to just like create fodder on social media. And so that hearing is now set. I thought it was for last Friday and it must have gotten moved because now it's September 13th. So let me just pop over here really quick because I think I just received... Okay, one of my team members just texted me and said it is not that sexual abuse was not anywhere in the 8 passengers case. So please, guys, do not believe do not take that until we see that as fact. So let's clarify that. It was not proven to be sexual abuse, and I didn't think so. I didn't think I saw that anywhere, but I know that some of the comments were going. But let's clear that up right now. Physical, yes. Sexual, no. Kouri Richins is so hold on, we'll go into Kouri Richins in a second. So Bryan wants to ban cameras. Personally, and I shared my thoughts about this on Headline Highlights, I don't think that it would be the worst thing in the world to ban cameras if they continue the cameras the way they are now, because I do think that it gives a lot of opportunity for speculation, for people to form their own opinions, which is okay, I think, and it's healthy in some regard, but I think it just needs to be done responsibly. We saw, too, in Idaho that cameras were banned in the Lori Vallow Daybell trial as well. I don't think that necessarily impacted things. We did get the cameras for the sentencing and the verdict, but I don't think it's unheard of that the cameras might be banned, because that case has already kind of now set precedent for this one. It's another high-profile case, but I think the claim of the reasons is okay, sure. So we'll see what happens. I hope that they do allow cameras. I really do, but I guess we'll have to wait until the judge and the hearing on the 15th. So let's talk about Kouri Richins. And spelling is okay. There is a U in Kouri, but whatever. Potato. So Kouri Richins is the accused murderer of her husband with the Moscow Mule, the poisoning, the lethal dose of fentanyl. And then she wrote the book, the children's grief book, How to Deal with the Loss of a Loved One and Parent. And she wrote it for her children. And then she went on her book tour, and then she was arrested. And they were like, you just wrote this book. You're the murderer, allegedly. She's now apparently studying and to take the LSATs. She wants to be an attorney. She wants to help fight for wrongly accused, wrongly convicted, all of these things. Again, and not to keep going back to this, but because we talk about all of these cases in Headline Highlights. We talked about this last week in Headline Highlights too. I don't know if that's truly because she does feel wronged and she wants to do right by other people, possibly. And so that's why she wants to take this route, even though there's a lot more to do than just the LSATs. But I don't know if that's the reasoning and the motive, or if it's a tactic to look innocent by being like, I am innocent. I'm wrongfully accused, so much so that I'm going to study now to be, an attorney and get people out who have been wrongfully convicted and exonerated and this and that. Like, based on what we've seen, I'd have to lean with the tactic piece. But again, innocent till proven guilty. I don't know. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Do you think that it is actually because she feels like she was wronged and she is innocent and somebody else was responsible for his death? Or do you think that she premeditatedly plotted this, not once, but apparently, allegedly twice, according to the documents, because he was changing her from all of the financial documents, the life insurance, all of these things. And she was a scorned woman and pissed off because she wanted that new mansion. And then she wanted to capitalize and write the grief book. And now she's trying to do the poor me routine and do this tactic of the LSATs. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I see one person saying tactic. And then Sarah Kelly is saying just a true believer in her own lies. I mean, she did write the book. I feel like that was a way to make people believe she would never do that. Possibly. The Misery Machine, thank you so much. And congratulations on all of your success as well. But thank you so much for the super chat and for the shout out. Oh, okay. Oh, I see a couple here. See, that's what Amy's here to help me out. She's like,
eyebrow tutorial.
And an eyebrow tutorial?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Well, you all know that if I don't Botox right, this one starts to go rogue when I get opinions and get like sketchy, and I get trolled for that all the time. I either have too much Botox or not enough. But anyways, Chad Doerman. As far as I know, there haven't been any crazy updates in that. If for those of you who aren't familiar with Chad Doerman, he is the father out of Ohio that, actually, hold on, let me get comfy because I do have some thoughts on this. He's the father, I use that term loosely, from Ohio who murdered all of his children, shot them all. And his stepdaughter was running away to the firehouse and she luckily survived. I mean, it was brutal and horrific. Now, they haven't come out with a motive at this point. Of course, when any type of family annihilator murders his family, people automatically assume, especially if the wife is left surviving, or sometimes even if the wife is not a survivor, that it's because it's retaliation for the wife potentially leaving or filing for divorce, something like that. Now, let me give this disclaimer. Please do your own research, form your own opinions. This is just my opinion. Speculation. Based on the documents and the information we have, knowing that he, his wife, and the kids were in bed taking a nap together that afternoon before this all happened, I don't believe that there was strife necessarily in the marriage. Possibly, and maybe she was hiding the divorce proceedings, but he found out about them. That actually happened to a childhood friend of mine, and the husband found out what she was planning. So that is very possible. But there was another comment that was made by him that made me question everything. First of all, we know that he was a very angry person, according to the neighbors. He was apparently always yelling. He was very angry. He was just not a happy person. He had also made some comments about how he hadn't slept for days leading up to this. He had also said that he had been planning this since I believe it was October, so several months, and that he couldn't sleep because he had to do this, or because what was the exact quote? I'm sorry, let me think really quick. The exact quote was like, I haven't slept for days because I knew I had to do this. It was like to that effect. So when I heard all of that, and knowing that they all took a nap together in the room, and that he hadn't slept for days leading up to it, my first thought and kind of comparison went to the guy, what's his name? Is it Matt, the surf instructor in Santa Barbara, who took the daughter or the baby down to Mexico? Like, that's a horrible case. If you don't know about it, don't look it up. But he was, I guess I'm just gonna have to say, I believe QAnon, and like a believer in all of that. And so part of me just can't help but wonder if Chad either was suffering from some sort of mental illness, not that that excuses it, but was hearing voices maybe. He was losing sleep because the fact that he said, I had to do it or something like that, like there's just something that is pulling me in that direction, especially if he had been struggling with these thoughts since October of last year. We know that sometimes in these cases, when they become very firm believers in something, or they hear voices, or they think the devil's coming in and that they're saving their children from some sort of evil that's going to take over, that they truly believe that, and that they give themselves a deadline of when they need to do something. So I think that, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, I believe that that could have been more of the motive than some sort of marital strife or retaliation. But I could certainly be wrong. It was just based on a few comments that were said and the activities leading up to it. I don't know. And like pushing his wife away, shooting her in the hand to get her away so that she couldn't interfere. There's just something in my mind that feels like that could have been what the motive was. But again, we don't know. So we don't know all of the details. So let's see. And let me know what you guys think about that. I could be way off. Maybe she was secretly planning to divorce him. He found out, he was pissed, and he said, you know, F you, I'm taking all of your happiness away from you. And I feel nothing. But also, that was another thing. Not only based on his comments and the activities, but his demeanor on that body cam footage when he was arrested, he was eerily calm, cool, collected, smoking a cigarette, very matter of fact, which looked on the surface like obviously no remorse, but almost like he's done with his job, if you know what I mean. There wasn't any sort of, not even remorse, but like crazy emotion in that moment, almost like he was numb. So again, I could be wrong. I'm not a professional, obviously, but that's where my mind went to it. So who knows? Let's see. Some of you are saying you believe he was controlling. Some are saying psychosis. Some are saying maybe a little bit of both. Disassociate. Yeah, I think he was disassociating. Yeah. The body cam footage was really difficult to watch. So, all right. Once I get updates in that, though, obviously I will give you guys updates. There just hasn't been anything released, and I don't feel like it's necessary to put a video out. Excuse me, a video out unless there's enough to warrant a video, or there is updates or there are updates in a case. That's also kind of why I do headline highlights, because it's, again, if one little detail comes out in the week, it's not going to warrant a whole video over on here. But if we're just doing a highlight episode on the podcast for 20 minutes, we could just talk about those brief little quick updates until we have like a full big case summary to do over here. Okay. So tell me what you guys want to talk about next. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of go into BTK quickly for the eyebrow tutorial, guys. If anybody's asking, I use Urban Decay Brow Blade, and it's a pencil, and I just pencil and go. And then I use a little brow gel to hold it in place. I can link it at another day, but there's really nothing to it. And then I get injected here to hold my brows up. I let them grow. I haven't waxed, tweezed, threaded in 5 years, probably, because I'm trying to get what I call, and what my sister hates, a power brow. She hates it more than anything, but I'm always like, I really just want a power brow, so I don't touch them, and then I just pencil them. Oh, I tried to laminate her brows.
Like an hour to wash it off.
So if you guys aren't familiar with laminating brows, it is exactly what it sounds like. And basically, you freeze the brow hair upward to make them look fuller. And I did that to my sister one time. I'm like, let me just do your brows. And she looked in the mirror. She's all, get me out of here. But yeah, so I don't tweeze. I don't do anything. And then I'm just trying to grow a bushy power brow. And then I pencil them in to make them look darker and thicker. And then I Botox them so that my hooded eyes don't go like this, so that I can like keep them up. But then, because funny story here, and then I promise we'll get back to true crime, but the crime really did happen in this instant of what I'm going to tell you in this story. While I was getting Botox, a lot of you guys know who have been with me for a while that I was in a really bad car accident when I was 16. I had brain surgery where they had to like shave my head. You could see the scar. It goes like ear to ear. And they had to patch like everything up here where I had fractures with like tissue and stuff. Fine, never have had any issue since. But apparently, when you get Botox, it doesn't penetrate through all of that great. So 7 years or something ago, Amy and I were going to, my sister and I were going to Cabo, got fresh Botox before the trip, and I had just like a huge dimple right here above the brow, whatever brow it is. I think it's this one, the Rogue one, a huge dimple. Like it looked like like a dimple. And I was like, what the hell is happening? And so like I had to get, like, when I went back, I like talked to the lady and she's like, oh no, we have to just like do more on that side because like it doesn't penetrate through all of what they patched in your surgery. And so long story short, I think that's why I have a runaway brow, because even when I go and get Botox, which despite you trolls, I don't get it that often. I get it like twice a year, but it just doesn't always hit on this side. So this eyebrow still just has like a mind of its own. Anyways, all right, now let's go back over to the real crime. So let's talk about BTK a little bit. Oh, hold on. Eddie Buger, anything on the sentence of Shabusiness? I haven't heard anything new lately regarding her. That's Taylor Shabusiness, the one who was acting a fool during trial, dismembered her boyfriend. She was like in a meth-induced state. They were having sex, like disgusting. But no, I haven't heard of anything new, except she's literally the creepiest person on earth. And I don't know, I guess I could get petty, but with a name like Shabusiness, I just like, I can't. It just makes me laugh. Okay, so let me see. Linda, could you please look into Jared Lysek's court case in Utah? Yes, I did touch on it when all the documents came out and I gave my opinion on this case. And I think all of us were really shocked and saddened to hear it. I know a lot of people stand on different sides of this because some people believe he was a victim of generational habits, and I'm going to phrase things lightly, while other people believe he should have known better and taken accountability. I have followed up a little bit because there is a friend of mine who is also a creator, but I'm not going to name on here, who has remained close to Jared in terms of like, not close like buddy, but like close to the case. And so we have chatted a little bit about it, but I'm not familiar about what's happening at this very moment in the case. So I certainly can go and look and get some updates for you guys. Lucy Leppy, it is coming. So many of you guys have been emailing, filling out the case recommendation form on my website. And I know all of you guys want coverage on this. Because it was such a long trial and because there are so many details, it is taking a while to gather all the information in a way that doesn't make your head spin, because there's so many newborns, so many things, like there's just so much to talk about, but it is currently in the works, and I'm guessing maybe in the next week or so you'll have it. Let's see. Yeah, the Lucy case is Lucy coverage is coming. So if there aren't any other cases you want me to jump into right now, or Amy, if there hasn't been like a requested one a lot that you see that's a common theme, I could jump to BTK.
Somebody asked what case impacted you the most.
What case impacted me the most? That's a really hard question. I feel like they all have impacted me differently. I would say baby Brianna is still one of the hardest cases I've ever covered. And when I first covered it, I think I mentioned even in that video, it took me almost 6 months to finally like build up the courage to talk about it, because I had been researching it and it's just so brutal and grotesque. And it was very, very hard for me to stomach. That one has stuck with me for a while. Victoria Martins has stuck with me for a while. A lot of them, to be honest, just in different ways. I feel like, of course, the ones with children always hit a little bit harder, not only because children are so innocent and pure and don't deserve any of that, not that anybody does, but I'm a mom and I have 2 young kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so they, of course, hit very hard. But I still think it's very important to talk about a lot of them, especially more so now that I am a mom, I think. But I would say those 2 are probably the ones that have stuck with me the most and have been the hardest to cover. Other than that, like in a different kind of way, ones that really piss me the fuck off, sorry, and that have stuck with me are ones like Chris Watts, Jennifer Doulos, which I'm doing a brand new video on that coming out soon. Things like that, where it's like there's no accountability, there's no justice. I think there's some other shady things at play. I did a whole video when I first started my channel, or not when I first, but like shortly after, on Nicole Kessinger, which I get it. It's no proof that she was tied to it, but there's a lot of things I don't like about her. So there's certain cases that just piss me off too. Alexis Sharkey is one of them, because her husband took the coward way. Like, there's a lot of them like that. And then there's of course a lot of cases too that I've learned a lot from. And those of you who've been with me since 2020 probably know what I'm referring to, that I cannot talk about legally, but I would love to, but I can't. But there have been a lot of cases that I've learned a lot from as well. And that's why too, I don't think that's why I don't go live very much anymore. But I think that's why I've kind of changed the format of a lot of my videos to where it feels very just like concise, factual, a little bit of speculation here and there. But I really have learned a lot from different cases that I've covered of where I need to reel it in. Because I think, to be quite honest, in the beginning, I was a little naive in realizing the power that I had with like my voice on this platform. So I've learned a lot from that. So I've tried to reel it in a lot, but I miss this aspect of just like talking about things and having like a normal conversation where we can talk about rumors that are going on, talk about ideas and thoughts and speculation, and do so in kind of like a freely open dynamic. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'm talking in circles. Maybe I'm so sunburned from yesterday that my brain's fried, which I am. But SB 1113, is your sister single? We need to know. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is Amy Colette. She is single, ready to mingle. She lives in the Orange County, California area. If you have any eligible bachelors that you would like to submit, she is a well-established professional, not like professional, you know what I mean? She's got a great sense of humor. She's got an amazing, amazing family, and she loves true crime. So email me any recommendations. Sorry, had to. Oh, and yes, Casey Anthony, 100%. That's one that will always stick with me. You know, this is interesting. Let me find, where did I just see this comment? Will you cover the Gabby Petito case, even though we all know the end results? So when all of that was going on with Gabby in 2021, when she still hadn't been found, and when Bryan was on the run after that, so many of you guys had requested that. But at the time, I was actually literally delivering my daughter Emmy, and like I couldn't keep up with the case. Like, there was no way I was going to be able to do anything. And then after that, when I kind of like started getting caught up with everything, it was after her body was found, and it was shortly before Bryan was found. All these things I started covering the Moab murders, and it kind of loosely tied in Gabby and Bryan, but I haven't really done, and I've done like live streams or little quick videos on Gabby and Bryan, not the full case, but like updates with some of the paperwork and just some of the things that happened. But I've never done a full start to finish case on it, because I'll just be honest with you guys, when I was ready to record again, I just felt like it had been covered so much, and it felt like there wasn't really anything of value that I was going to add in that moment. Maybe, yeah, it would be my point of view, my thoughts, and I guess my voice with it, but I didn't think there was anything that I could add of value, and so I didn't really see the purpose in it. So I could, who knows, but I try, and I don't always succeed, but I try to make it a point to only cover cases where I feel like there's value being added, or there's something that needs awareness, even if it's an old case that has been solved and maybe the outcome won't change. There is a detail in it that I think needs to be shared, needs to be heard, so people can be aware and look out for things in the future. Like, there needs to always be a purpose for the coverage. And I don't always hit it, all the time, and I miss the mark quite a bit. But for that case specifically, I just didn't really know what the purpose was. I guess you could argue that the purpose is from being in controlling relationships, especially because these happen in very young relationships as well. So I don't know. I would need to think on it. Summer Wells. We have talked a lot about Summer Wells. Unfortunately, there are no new updates in Summer Wells. There have not been updates in quite some time. And again, unless there's information that I feel warrants a video, I probably won't do a video until there's information, because I think otherwise it just kind of adds to the speculation. People just kind of want to hear the salacious details. They want to form, I don't know. Again, this is all learnings from doing this in the past, where I've learned it can get very irresponsible very quickly. And I'm trying to be better about that. I saw somebody comment about the merch. Yes, the merch is officially live. It went live at 8 a.m. this morning. It is shop10tolife.com. Very limited quantities available, but it is finally up. It has been like a year in the making. I know you guys have been waiting, but yeah, limited quantities available. You can grab it now, but it went live this morning. So I know a lot of you already have grabbed it. So hopefully you guys like it. I tried to do it to where it wasn't like logos or the channel name. I tried to make it very universal. So anybody who is fascinated with true crime or watches true crime can find something they love or get something that's a good gift for somebody else who likes true crime. So all of that. All right. Thank you, Grayson. Grayson just put it in the chat. Thank you right there. I'll put that up. Yeah, it went live 2.5 hours ago. So there is still some stuff left. So, and yes, there are plus size. There is plus size. All right. So let's move over into BTK, because I've kind of gone off on a tailspin here for a minute. So let me like reel it back in for a second. So all of you guys obviously know who BTK is. Serial killer, some of the worst of the worst. Just, yeah, all the bad things. Also was compared to Bryan Kohberger in a lot of ways, because there were not only the similarities, but because of Professor Ramsland, all of these things. Well, now BTK is the prime suspect in the disappearance of Cynthia Dawn Kinney, who was 16 years old when she went missing from a laundromat back in 1976. He's the prime suspect based on portions of one of his journals, and he had titled it Bad Wash Day and said that in 1976 he had murdered someone from a laundromat. So they're tying this in. And I put on my Twitter the other day, which I'm not good at Twitter, but I put this on Twitter. BTK's daughter, Carrie, recently had visited him, and she did an interview with Ashley Banfield, but she had recently visited him and said that he's in a wheelchair and has no teeth left, and that she has tried to get some information out of him, but that he has not given any yet. Police are investigating possible ties to Cynthia's case as well as other cases after searching a hiding hole on the Kansas property where he used to live. And in that, they had found bondage material and trophies from at least one woman, amongst other things that they said they do not want to share yet. There was a drawing made by BTK, and let me share it with you here. The green girl one, this one. And it's a blonde-haired woman wearing green and being bound in a barn. The drawing was recently released, and police have now said that the woman in the drawing has possibly been identified as a woman who went missing in southeast Kansas in 1991. 2 other drawings were released as well. So let me put these up for you. Here's one. And here's one. Now, from what we know, from what we have heard, he likes, he kind of liked to draw these reenactments. He liked to pose himself in photos. He liked to draw things, all sorts of different reenactments. So now it looks like there are quite a few cases and cold cases that they are looking as him as possibly the prime suspect in. And they are also using Carrie, his daughter, who's been just incredibly brave, to get her to help identify some of the things in the photographs, to identify the places where some of the pictures were taken, to where they can hopefully bring closure to a lot of these cases and, bring those families some resolution. So, let's see. How about looking into the Thomas Brown case? I haven't heard of that case. Could you tell me which one that is? But I certainly will. And as a reminder, on the website, annieelise.com, there's a case recommendation form. So any cases you guys ever want me to cover, please fill that out, because we look at that all the time. And that is a huge factor in the cases that we choose to cover. Lindsay Shiver. It has. That's like another one that just pisses me off. Lindsay Shiver, there's no real updates in her case as of late. Mods, if you could drop some of the links to these cases for the full videos that we've done on them in the chat, so people who aren't familiar with it can then go back and watch it. Or maybe Here's what we'll do. Yeah, drop them in the chat, and then at the end of this, I'll update the description of this video with the links to all of the cases that we've talked about, like BTK, Lindsay, Summer Wells, Alexee Shiver, like everything we've kind of talked about. I'll put in here so that if you, because I know sometimes it can be hard to hunt that video down in like the sea of videos. But from what I know, there haven't been any real updates with her. I think she can't leave. She's still in the Bahamas. I still haven't seen any additional proof that shows that like she was the one plotting this, aside from, of course, what they found on the phone. But no other updates at this point that we know. The body cam footage has been released. We talked about that. I think I played that for you in my last video as well. So nothing, again, that has really warranted a huge update. But as soon as there are updates in those cases, I absolutely will let you know, hands down. That's interesting. Okay, hold on. April, May, June. I'm going to pull this up because this isn't the first time that I've heard this. You're saying her husband is framing her, I honestly think. That's not the first time that I've heard this. And I don't know if I necessarily believe that myself. I would need to see more information. But I'm hearing a lot of people saying that out there. And I don't know if there's any credible evidence attached to that or not, but it is interesting. Let's see. What about the Titan submarine case? Is there anything new? Not that I've heard of. Oh, hold on. Jess Morgan, 100% husband framed her. Listen to the new 911 calls. Well, we can all listen to them together if they were just released. Mods, can one of you let me know in the text messages? Can one of you guys email me that link or the file and we'll play it here? And then we can all listen together. You don't want to see my tattoos. They're god-awful, honestly. That's what happens when you're 18 years old and you date a tattoo artist. You end up with a parrot wearing Nikes on your arm, among other things. Not my finest moment. All right, let's see. So while we're waiting on that, and then we'll listen to the calls. Oh my gosh, we've already been on here for over an hour. The time flies when we're doing this, guys. It really does. Okay, so hold on, Sue. Let me pull this up. Yes, the newly 911 calls from her husband flipped my opinion right around, although I still think she is bat snip crazy. All right, let's listen to these calls. All right, I'm going to wait on one of my mods to email it to me, or if any of you guys have it, and if you could just email me the link to 10tolifeinfo@gmail, and I'll pull that up right away. Thank you guys all for joining me today, too. I really appreciate it. We've got about 6,600 people in here right now. That's awesome. Oh, yeah. Okay. I will get back to this. So it could melt. While we're waiting for the 911 calls, let's talk about this. So you guys had asked my opinions on the lawsuits. So Kylie Rodney, her father and her grandfather have apparently filed a lawsuit against Ryan Upchurch for his thoughts that he had shared while she was missing, and that this was some deeper planned thing, that there were a lot of conspiracies around it and things like that. While doing that, he also roped Ikadmel into it, along with a creator named Xaname, and I think a couple more people possibly, I'm not sure, and tried to say that they were involved somehow as well. So now Ikadmel has also filed a lawsuit against Ryan Upchurch. My thoughts on this are, it is very dangerous to have a large platform on the internet and freely speak your mind and your opinions, regardless how much you may believe them, regardless how much you may think there's truth to them. And I have learned that firsthand. And that's, again, why I have tried to reel it in and be a little bit more careful and better as of the last several months and year. I think that it also... It was irresponsible in that way, regardless, again, of what he believed, because what happened is he has these diehard followers, and I forget what he calls them. I think Creek Squad or something like that. But then they were sending death threats to the other people involved because they believed everything that Ryan was saying. And believed it as truth. And that got really scary for a lot of people. And I know Mel was very scared and had a very serious death threat come through, and he has a child, and that is horrifying, of course. And so I think, while I don't know if the lawsuits are going to go anywhere personally, or if they'll settle out, or what's going to happen, I do think it's important that as this keeps happening, there is some sort of precedent set to where people learn that there needs to be a different level of responsibility in place for what you say, opinions you share, certain propaganda you may push. So we'll see where it goes. I definitely support Mel. I don't think what happened to him was right in any way you look at it. I think he was attacked for completely bogus and crazy reasons. So for his sake, I hope that he does win. I hope that Kylie's family wins. And I hope that her family, after whatever happens with the lawsuit, can finally just continue to grieve and get some closure at some point. Let's see. I think I maybe got the link. Just the link with him talking is fine. Can you email it to me, please? Let me pull this up, guys. Oh, somebody else already emailed it too. Oh, so I think I may already have it. Let me see. Hold on, let me pull it up. Okay. What's the time? If you could also let me know the timestamp in the chat, because it looks like this is a 15-minute long thing. Let me see if I could fast forward to it and find the timestamp. It looks like it is around 2:48. Oh, you sent the one with timestamps. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm not looking at the chat right now. Okay. 2:45 to 5:00. Okay, here we go. So let me share my screen. Let me get this timestamp right. And I'll start this a little early. Gosh, I haven't used StreamYard in forever. Let's figure it out, Annie. Okay, share screen. Share tab audio. Okay, let me do this, and then I'm also going to mute my mic.
Get inside of this relationship and try to figure out, was there an actual motive for her to plot his murder? What was the situation? Let's take a listen.
So my wife just got back from out of town, and I believe that we are heading down the road of getting divorced. She just cut my cell phone off from Verizon. She called Verizon and had my cell phone disconnected. So I'm calling on my mother's phone at the Verizon store, because the only way I can get it back active is if she releases it. Mm-hmm. So I have to go over to our home, and with the way that she is behaving, I feel like she might try and call the police to try to set me up as soon as I get there. And I wanted to try to get out in front of it, because I'm not a risk of, doing anything crazy. I'm just trying to go to my house, and if I need to pack my stuff and leave, I can pack my stuff and leave. But my kids are there, and, I don't want it to be presented as she goes and screams bloody murder, calls the police over a thing to try to have me carried off in a police car.
Is there the police will usually, like, if you want an escort to pack like personal belongings or something, they'll stand by for like 15 minutes. But if you're like trying to get all of your stuff or something, it's going to take longer than that. You usually have to go through the sheriff's department and make arrangements to go over there and have a deputy go with you.
Well, nothing has been sent or said where I can't go over to my home. I'm just really concerned about her trying to set me up. I don't want her to try to play this game of she's a victim when I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
So if she calls the police and says, my husband is irate, can you please come over here? Mm-hmm. and the law comes over there, what is the risk of me getting carted off in a police car in front of my kids?
I can't answer that question for you, sir. Most of the time, they're just going to ask one of you to leave the property to de-escalate things. You just got back into town. Were you working on town or something?
I've been working all day today. She just
Okay.
got back into town from a long weekend.
Okay. I'll have one of the supervisors give you a phone call, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okay, now we're gonna go
Fascinating.
to. Hold on. There's a couple more, so there's one more, so this one's a little
What
longer.
does this mean? Take a listen.
This one's from April 12th.
Almost getting 911.
Listen, I do not have an emergency right now, but I was wanting to just kind of put you guys on notice of something that is been kind of odd.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the right person to talk to, or do I need to be transferred to dispatch, or what?
This is dispatch.
Okay, so today at work, I had a letter delivered to me, and it was a USB thumb drive. And it didn't have a return to sender address or anything. And so I plugged the thumb drive in, and it had all these pictures of my wife on it from about 2 weeks ago when we were out of the country. And the same thumb drive was delivered to my parents' house about a mile away in an unmarked envelope.
What?
And it looks like, glancing through, that it was almost like a private investigator. But we have spoken with everybody that we know,
Mm-hmm.
and they've all confirmed that they don't know what we're talking about.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have like a potential stalker or some lunatic that's in town that has been following my wife around. But we just wanted to let you guys know it might do, or we would like it if you guys could maybe, just make a couple of passes by our home tonight. We just kind of went through and checked the whole house ourselves.
Okay. Do you want to get a report as well?
I don't think we need a report just yet, because we're trying to find out more information on who took the pictures, and we're talking to some people that have some security cameras to see if we can get a picture of the individual first.
Okay. Were the pictures taken while you were out of the country, or were they taken while you were here?
They were taken while we were out of the country in the Bahamas, and for spring break a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they just showed up at my office today. That was mailed to me, but then an envelope was also, an unmarked envelope was placed in my parents' mailbox with the same thumb drive.
Okay, you want them to kind of ride around your residence a few times throughout the night?
Yeah, if that's okay. I mean, so they can kind of patrol both sides, I think would be just some extra reassurance that, everything's okay. We've got our alarm on.
Okay, yes, sir. All right.
Everybody's good, so. But just wanted to see if you guys could help with that.
Yes, sir. We'll definitely have them do that.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Personally, I think that was weird. That's the first time I've ever heard those. But it felt like, yes, he was possibly trying to create a trail. And why else would you call 911 with a non-emergency unless it's because you know that 911 records the phone calls, and so you will have a digital trail of this. Also, who's just sending unmarked envelopes to your office and to your family with photos, and then out of everyone you know, nobody knows who did it. You didn't hire PI. Like, nobody's just doing that for a hobby. If you did think you truly had a stalker and they were taking photos like that and sending them to your office, like, why not go to the police station with the envelope? Try to get it fingerprinted. Try to see if there was anything. I know he said unmarked, but like, I don't know. Something's weird. Something is so weird. Man, now I don't know. But this, I know this is what happens though. New evidence comes out, and now my opinion's moving. But even when we talked about her case in the beginning, remember we had said like the text message of like, what did she say? Like, I want him dead, or like kill him, or whatever. I was like, is this really a hit? There's nothing else really explained. Or is this like really angry venting because it's a contentious divorce? I don't know. Yeah, he did put a tracker on her car as well. And now I'm sorry, we've talked so many cases. I'm starting to get them all melting together in my mind. But doesn't his family has a lot of money. They have the private jet, they have the PJ, and they like kicked her off of it. Something isn't feeling right here. Something isn't feeling right. So, hi Mel. You're confused around my studio setup. I know. I'm by my computer. My pink couch is to the right of me. This is where I film Serialously, the podcast, and I'm on my computer. So that's why it's a different setup. That's a good point. He did keep saying we a lot. So maybe he is in cahoots with his parents. I'm going to dive deeper into this. This is really interesting. So stay tuned. Let's see. Definitely a red flag. All right, guys. Well, we have been on here for a little over an hour now. So what else are we going to do? Let me know if there are any other cases that you guys want to talk about. Like I said in the beginning, if you're just tuning in, I'm really going to try to make it a point to do these more because I miss doing live streams. And now I finally have my setup in here to where I think that I can do it without any tech issues. Like, I think it's taken me a while, but I think I finally hit that. But it worked out perfectly because I know we had been planning this for a few days, but we hit 1 million this morning. So I feel like this was like the perfect way to all celebrate together and hang out together and just talk true crime. So really quickly, just kind of as a reminder too, before we get to some of these other case requests that you guys are throwing in the chat box right now. Where was I going with that? Oh, the Mackenzie Shirilla podcast was uploaded yesterday, but the video will be here on YouTube, I believe, tomorrow. If you haven't followed the podcast yet, it's called Serialously. It's linked in the description. It's on all podcast platforms. And I do headline highlights over there every Thursday as well, which I don't do on YouTube. And it is just everything happening that week in true crime, whether it's current case updates, new cases, all the things. Merch launched today. I don't know if we're sold out yet. I have to go look. We'll see. And Dylan Rounds update. I do have that on my list, although there aren't a ton of things to do. I do have that on my list. Cal City Twins, there isn't anything new with that yet. The trial happened obviously a couple months ago. What else? I think that's where we're at. So my deep dive on, let me just pull up my calendar actually on the back end so I can tell you what's coming this week. The deep dive on Ruby Frankie, 8 passengers, that is coming this week. Hopefully, I might even have the audio uploaded today or tomorrow on the podcast. I might. It just depends. The video always takes longer to edit. But that deep dive is coming. The video on Mackenzie Shirilla is coming tomorrow. We have some other cases coming out. We've got Lucy Letby in the mix coming out. We have some bonus episodes over on Patreon, doing a bonus case over there every single Friday for you that is not on YouTube, just as like an added perk if you're in the Patreon. So that's a new case every Friday. I'm looking at the calendar right now. Jennifer Doulos is coming out soon. Jamie Bolin, a lot is coming out. But as a reminder too, send your case requests through the case recommendation form so that we know what you guys want to hear and what you want us to cover so we can. And that's a wrap. So thank you guys so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to definitely come on here and do more lives with you guys. And again, whether you started with me in 2020 at 0 subs or you've come at some point along the way or you are brand new today, I just really, really appreciate all of you guys. And I'm so grateful for you. So truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Couldn't do any of this without you. So I really, really appreciate you. What else? I don't know. I feel like I don't want to get off, but I don't know what else to talk about. And I have some filming to do. I got to get Lucy Letby out for you guys. I got to film that. I got to film 8 passengers and record that right now. Got a big day ahead of me. So I do have to jump off. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can always find me on Instagram at _Annie Elise for more behind the scenes stuff, or catch me on Patreon, catch me on the podcast. Check out the merch, do all the things. All the links are in the description. All right, guys, I will talk with you very soon. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. All right, bye. Amy says bye too. Send me the Bachelor recommendations in my email. Bye.